What if I told you there's a business where you don't have to have staff, you don't need a storefront, and you could be selling pizza 24/7 from a vending machine? Sounds crazy, right? We broke down the real math, the real experience, and whether this could be a gold mine or a giant trap. Let's dive into the good, the bad, and the brutally honest about pizza vending machines. Welcome to Your Next Venture, the podcast where we break down real world business ideas and figure out if they're your next big move or your next big mistake. I'm EJ Bowen. I'm an entrepreneur, strategist, and someone who's eaten more late night pizza than I'd like to admit. Today, I'm joined by two of my good friends and business partners, Brendan Burke and Rob Thomas, as we dig into the wild idea, pizza vending machines. Could they be a hidden opportunity or just a novelty trap? Let's find out.
All right, guys, we're going to talk about something that's a little bit crazy today, or might at least sound a little bit weird. It's pizza vending machines. And I know it's a little bit out there, but you go out there, you tap on a screen, 3 minutes later, a pizza pops out. So, Brandon, what do you think of this concept?
This concept, I was intrigued for sure. I like the idea of novelty, and this was definitely that. For me, the experience was the big question mark, and we'll see how it lived up to it.
Rob, talk to us a little bit. Why'd you even bring this thing up? What is it about pizza vending machines?
Yeah, so it was nutty, right? I was just cruising on the internet one night, and I just saw this ad, and I sent it to my son. And we kind of went back and forth. So, you know what? That's kind of cool. You can go somewhere and get a pizza anytime, day or night. Checked into it a little bit. Costs like $8, $9, $10 for a pizza. And it costs about $2, $3 to make it. From the outset, it seemed like it may really be something worth looking into.
I totally get that. I have late nights on those weird things. Let's analyze the business. Would this be a business we would buy or invest in right now? From a high level, Rob, I'm like, why don't we dive in a little bit more about the business, and then we'll go into the product after that. So go ahead.
Okay. As I mentioned, the cost structure of this is really appealing. The unknown at this point would be you have an option basically of going one route and using and buying equipment from a player in the market already, or there are machines out there you can just buy on your own. And so the cost of those machines, it varies wildly between those two options. And so that's a big part of this decision of if you choose to do it, which path do you go? So we're basically making, $8 per pizza. If we can do 30 pizzas a day, we're talking, $240 a day per machine. So, roughly $7,000 from a cost of sales gross margin standpoint. And so, look, there's a lot of other costs that go into it. Some of those are, do we need to have somebody with boots on the ground that would go around to the various machines, restock them, check for any spoil, those kinds of things, troubleshoot anything that would happen to go wrong because it's electronics. So, it's going to go wrong at some point. With that also, putting these machines, are we having them outside? Are they inside? So there's a lot of next steps that would have to occur to really get a good estimate on true profitability, net income, versus, the information that we have right now. But, from the outset, it does look pretty appealing, I got to say.
Pro tip, always look beyond gross margins. Your true profit is what's left over after everything: labor, spoilage, service calls, and rent.
That's interesting here because I'm of the three of us, I'm the food guy. I've owned restaurants, so I know I have a little bit of experience in this space, and basically what you're fighting for in this space is stomach share, right? So you would have to buy this one over something else. In the one that I visited, I'll talk about here in a second, was behind an Arby's. So the way I would talk about it would be like, would I rather have a roast beef sandwich or a pizza coming out of a vending machine? Because that's about the same cost that you're dealing with, at least in that moment. And so operationally, I mean, like restaurants can be challenging. So I think the appealing thing here is your employee base is small. You don't have to sell as much to make money. And I mean, I'll tell you from what I understand, and I don't know these numbers for sure, but if you go out and own, let's say, a Subway that's doing on the average side, you're making about 30 grand a month in profit. But that's with a ton of employees and a ton of pain. So this is appealing from that perspective if you can figure out that the product is good enough. So I'll go ahead. I did visit one of these, and then I want you guys' thoughts on it too. But I thought it was cool. It was almost like my own little TikTok moment. I wanted to go up. I wanted to see it. I wanted to push all the buttons. Went up, bought a pizza. 3 minutes later, it popped out. It was like 15 degrees outside, and it warmed it up generally okay. It smelled really good. Threw it in my car, took it home. Now, smell is sometimes is a little bit deceiving, and in my case, it was only okay. I typically measure the products that I buy, especially when it comes to food, is would I do it again? And in this specific instance, I would probably put this at or below frozen pizza aisle, type pizza. So that was my 2 cents on it. Now that doesn't mean other ones wouldn't be way better, but that was my first experience with this pizza vending machine. Has anyone else visited one or tasted this before?
Yeah, definitely. So I like what you said, EJ, about the smell, because I mean, you can get the smell and the look and the environment right anywhere, right? That does a lot of work for you, right? So from a marketing perspective, the one I visited was on a college campus. You think, okay, this makes perfect sense. Kids studying, grabbing a pizza. Looked good, smelled really good. You walk up, it was impossible to miss. It was out in this courtyard area. Again, took about 3 minutes, but that's where the fun of the novelty of ordering a pizza out of a vending machine ended for me. Everything from the crust to the cheese to the sauce was below mid, in my opinion, right? It tasted very manufactured. And it was one of those things where I don't know that I would go back despite the amount of hype or marketing or novelty in ordering a pizza through a vending machine. I don't know if I would go back based on the experience and based on the taste, right?
So
And for you,
It's important. If that first bite isn't a win, there's no second sale. Customer experience starts with taste and ends with loyalty.
Well, so Brendan, I'll ask you a question just on top of that. It's like, okay, you wouldn't go back. So like, let's say, you're starving to death and you can eat a pizza out of one of these machines or any of the fast food pizza out there, any of them, the lowest one on your list. Which one do you buy?
the fast food for sure. And this is coming from someone who has kids, right? So we're eating Little Caesars all the time. Little Caesars crushed this one, right? So part of why I was drawn to it was the ultimate convenience, right? And you talk about, would I pick the Arby's or would I pick the vending pizza? I would go, what I really liked about this was the ultimate convenience. Like you throw this in an apartment building, right? You don't even have to make that choice. You're just walking down the stairs, right? You throw this right outside of your college campus, right? I mean, it was 20 yards, if that, right? But again, in order for us, the numbers look good, but the demand has to be there. And in order for the demand to be there, you got to have the product, in my opinion.
Well, here I'll throw this out right here too. I drive by the one that I bought one at least a couple times a week. I've never seen someone there, like, ever. I think I might be the only person.
They probably went there once.
Yeah, I was the one that bought a pizza there. So
Right.
so that the demand, I don't know the demand's there, but maybe this is late night munchies, like midnight, and I got to get a pizza, and I don't want to, everyone else is
It's got to
closed.
be like,
So what you're saying is there's a sign there saying over one served.
Yeah, exactly. There's a sign that says over one served. So
well, and here's the crazy part. It's like, I feel like, if you're going to run a service business, right? You have to think about the experience from the start to the end, right? And so the concept of vending machine pizza, oh, it's convenient, oh, it's this, how great, you don't have to staff it. But if the experience isn't good, it's not going to be good. I can tell you a few annoyances, nothing crazy, but there was sun hitting the back. It was a Utah afternoon in winter and with plenty of sun. I kind of had to cover the screen to be able to pick things. And then the thing that killed me was I get my pizza and I'm thinking, okay, if I'm a student, great, share this. No way to cut the thing and no napkins. So automatically you've killed the entire benefit of convenience has been killed, because now I got to go search for a way to cut this thing and how not to get it everywhere.
I guess everyone eats it like a cougar tail and just,
Yeah,
gets
I mean, who knows?
No, I totally get that. No, I don't want to just totally bash the idea. I mean, at the end of the day, the concept is good and it may evolve to be something that is fantastic. And maybe there's a machine out there that it is killing it, but I believe the one that I went to has the highest ratings, at least so far, as far as the food is concerned. And so I think this one's got a little bit of ways to go. But let's keep kind of analyzing this a little bit and talk operations. From an operational perspective, how do you guys think you would operate? Let's say you owned, I just quick back of the napkin numbers. Let's just say $2 a pizza you can make on this profit, your net profit. Let's say you make $2,000 a month. I don't know what people need to make today just to survive. Let's just say it's somewhere around 6 to 8 grand a month. So you got to own 3, 4, 5 of these things to survive and to quit, call it to quit your job, right? So how would you operationalize this if you were going through the process?
Clearly, you'd have to make it up in volume, right? I mean, if you're only able to generate that much profit, net income from one machine on any given day, you're going to have to make it up with 6, 7, 8 machines. And I think that's where a real challenge is going to be, because, most people that want to leave their jobs, I'm not sure they have that kind of capital laying around to be able to go out and purchase, or even maybe get a loan for, the cash needed to buy that many to be able to replace the income that they would be losing when they left their jobs. I think that's a big deal for me in being a numbers guy is, even if I loved the pizza, even if I, loved everything about it, I think the scalability of this is one of the things that causes me a little bit of problem.
Remember, tiny profits aren't a problem if you have big volume. But if you don't, it's a slow death, not a fast win.
Brandon, let me ask you a question. So
Yeah.
A few weeks ago when we were talking a little bit about this, you brought up that, next to one of your businesses is a pizza franchise or like a local pizza joint, right? That's pretty good pizza.
Pretty good
So,
pizza, yeah.
and you're like, well, what if we partnered with this dude and we just did it? Talk a little bit about like, what are some other ways? Because I think getting the food and stocking these pizza machines and keeping it working is probably one of the biggest problems.
Yeah, I mean, again, I love the concept, right? It's getting the experience and the taste right, and I think that was just one thought, because they have the 00 flour, which, for pizza aficionados know that's like that really matters to taste. So I never ended up talking to him, but that's still probably on the table. But I would probably work out a situation where I say, hey, I'm going to take care of the machines. I'm going to take care of the marketing. I'll find the locations, but you need to supply the ingredients, and then your staff, or we find somebody to do it, right? That's my big question operationally too, is let's say you do say, okay, this is really intriguing. I'm going to leave my day job and go do this early on, right? I mean, you're the owner, but you're also, in order to save money, you might be the driver, you might be the restocker. And that's something you got to think about, right? So are you mentally and willingly able to go from whatever you were, an executive, let's say, and now you're basically a pizza driver? Is that something that you've thought through and you're okay with doing?
It's easy to dream about passive income. It's harder to picture yourself restocking machines at 3 a.m. Know your reality before you jump.
Could you emotionally handle, you are now a pizza delivery guy and you were a VP of marketing at such and such company? Yeah.
Right. And that's that's something that may hit you after you buy this thing, right? And you're like, okay, I can't find a reliable driver, or it's not in the, in the budget.
Yeah, and so far my experience is I mean, we're talking about it's got to be a good product and you got to be able to operationalize it. And I think the biggest challenge we have here is if you're going to have a good product, right now there's not a good product out there that's working in these machines. Maybe it's because Papa John's or whatever, they've all got their own recipes that have done well for a long time. But if you were to go out and get one of these other guys to kind of work with your partner with you and you do it, I see that as a possibility if someone wanted to do it. Now, it wouldn't be a business where you could have 5 dudes running around, selling pizzas out of a vending machine, because there's not enough margin to make it work. Like
Right.
the one that I bought was $8. How much was the one you bought?
I think it was 10.
Was it 10? So if I'm selling them at $8, I'm even making even less. And at yours, let's just assume it was 2. Mine would have been like 180. So that's some of the challenge there. So,
Well, and the other challenge would be, it's if you partnered with a bona fide pizza establishment that has that brand name, and if you can get the same quality, then you save a lot of time and money and resources in building that brand,
yeah.
right?
Or you get an up and coming brand that needs the help of building a brand, and now you can be true partners or something like that. There's got to be a model in there that makes it so you are partnering and making the thing go because you both need each other. No.
Yeah, and I think that again, I mentioned novelty, and novelty is amazing, but the experience has to follow through.
Or you don't go back.
Yeah, I mean, the only way, seriously, I would go back to that particular one would be if I had my kids with me, so they could see it and have the fun of experiencing it. It's kind of like one of those old penny machines. Remember that you like pull and it'll like stamp the Oregon Trail on your penny. It'll stretch it. It's like that, right? You do it once, it's fun, but you're gonna waste more money doing it again. That's kind of how I feel about this.
And see, for me, I never wanted to think of it as being like the low cost pizza, right?
Yeah.
And being only convenient. To me, it needed to be able to attract customers because it's good pizza, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that it is $10 is a byproduct of it, right? But the fact I can go here anytime I want and get a really good pizza. And by the way, it's kind of cool. I take my grandkids over there, we watch it cooking. It's kind of cool, but standard is not enough for me to be able to put my stamp on this. I would really want it to be a destination and not a novelty.
And it's funny, and I think, Rob, we were on the same page to some extent on this. I was actually happy with if you take pizzeria level pizza and you take frozen pizza. I was okay with being better than frozen, not as good as pizzeria. I was okay with being more in line with the delivery, right? With the Papa John's or the even Little Caesars. If we could compete on that level, I think the convenience, depending on where you put it, could win.
Yeah, and it could vary, right?
You're in trouble.
You could vary, right? I mean, in a college dorm, let's face it, they probably don't care as much as, if you had it at a, gated community in the, in their gathering room or whatever, right? That would need to be a much better product than, college gets probably just about anything, right? So,
well, I thought was like, you get somebody, college kid or otherwise, they got the munchies. It's 3 a.m. One of these down the bottom of the stairwell, right? Super easy, super convenient. That would be the most low hanging fruit for me. That's where these machines can and should live.
Yeah.
Well, so Brendan, let's kind of move into the marketing and market fit a little bit. Talk a little bit about how you would market this thing and where you would place them. I mean, so we talked about like in a dorm room or in an apartment complex, but talk a little bit about the marketing and then placement.
Yeah, I think the marketing would start a lot with placement. And again, I don't think any amount of good marketing will make up for a product that's lacking. I think visibility, I think it's a lot of physical marketing. Certainly you could do social media. Certainly you could do some things around the experience of ordering it. And they have those out on YouTube, right? I think that's kind of where we even got excited, was seeing real people looking at some of these machines and having that, right? Certainly there's some direct marketing. We don't have to get into all the strategies and tactics, but what I'm saying is, for me, location would be the ultimate first step after the pizza tasting good would be location. And I know, like for me, I was really excited because we have a gas station. We live kind of up a mountain, and we have a gas station that's the last commercial stop to basically serve the entire mountain. Yes, there's grocery stores and restaurants down at the bottom. This gas station is about halfway up. They had a Netflix machine that was just sitting there. I went out, I measured, I'm like, oh man, we could fit one of these things here. This would be perfect, right? People are getting gas, washing their cars, constantly getting soda. They have the hot dogs and so forth, but you have these mid to high income suburbanites stopping there on the daily. So, right, mom's taking kids home from lacrosse practice, they grab a pizza on the way, right? Dad's like, hey, I got to get something, or whomever lives up the mountain just needs something quick. If it's good, it would be a win because it's just fitting right into their daily life. No having to go out of the way, no having to make any special calls. It's just right there, right? You could offer a take and bake option too, right? So either way. So that's where I was thinking, we could even put that right there and just have that be our test. But again, the quality of the product was such that.
Just remember, a great product in a bad location still loses. Placement isn't optional. It's everything.
So what you're saying is gas station hot dog, vending machine pizza is like the gas station hot dog, vending machine pizza.
It's almost a toss up for me, as crazy as that sounds.
Both of them are going to make you sick. So that's
yeah.
All right, cool.
Well, and I think, to be fair, the concept for me is still on the table. We just need to find a better product.
Well, to your point, Brendan, I think, look, there's a lot of startups, right, that don't get it right immediately out of the gate. So I think it's important to, even if it's not now, I think it may be worth a revisit. And the other thing too, if you remember, I sent you guys out a little info packet, and inside of that, Pizza Hut has actually kind of test marketed this in a couple of places. It's not quite a vending machine. It's a little different. It seats one person, but it's made by nobody, right? So it's kind of the same, but not quite. But, you have to think if they're toying even with that, what's the next step? Look, anybody that can lower personnel costs and personal worries about, are my people going to show up today? EJ, you're the expert. But if you could get rid of that and have it turned over by computers or equipment, and you don't have to rely on people showing up, people making it correctly. Who knows? It may go from a vending machine concept to a full store concept in no time at all.
Don't forget, great ideas launched at the wrong time fail. The market has to be ready, not just you.
Well, what's interesting about that, Rob, the opportunity I see there is, do you get in now and establish those locations, that distribution, so to speak, so that when bigger players are wanting to come into the market, they can maybe buy you out?
Yeah. Yeah. And an exit would certainly be part of that, right? You get in, but to me, honestly, the cost of the machine and the payback period on those, given the limited number of pizzas we probably turn out on a day, that would be kind of tough for me, I think, at least right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I go back to some of the marketing real quick, EJ, you asked me about what I would do. Because it would be a smaller operation, I wouldn't spend a lot of time and effort doing any sort of paid media. I would start with whatever I could do grassroots to try sampling. And that starts with the location itself. Maybe you go to some events and try to drive that initial sampling. And then at that point, you could easily do some sort of loyalty program, punch card, digital, whatever you want to drive those repeat purchases. That's where I would start, at least. I wouldn't try to take on some large brand campaign at the outset.
I think you'd go under, because you already would be out $15K per machine and a whole bunch of food costs. Your upfront cost just to get this sucker off the ground per machine has got to be, I don't know, 20, 25K just to get it going. Yeah. And then you got to think about how you market the thing. So, and not that that's a ton for a business that, potentially could pay you a couple grand a month, but the reality is, I think what the ROI, to Rob's point, would, you're well over a year just to get the machine back, or your upfront cost back. And that could be a little bit of a challenge, especially for people who are trying to get out of corporate America and into entrepreneurship, and having this be their first step. So
Right.
And to your point, you need more than one.
yeah,
I mean, you'd have to get 6 or 8, most likely, to replace most people's income. And I mean, that capital cost up front is
yeah, you're
not.
looking at $80,000 to $120,000, maybe even
Yeah.
150 to get off the ground.
Yeah. And I'm
No,
not sure banks would finance that being such a new concept. I think you may have some trouble trying even to get capital from banks. I'm not sure they would buy into that kind of a concept yet.
So the people who have them right now, right? Because these things are growing in the U.S., right?
Mhm.
People who have them, do we feel like they're just buying? Let's say it is a franchisee. Are they just buying on the potential? They think it's cool, so they go for it. How do we feel they're doing? Do we have any idea?
I don't know that we've seen any numbers on that. But if you were to buy, I believe, Rob, didn't you look into the cost of being a franchisee per machine? Wasn't it
Yeah.
something like
Yeah, it was for the whole thing, it was between 50 and 80.
Yeah. I mean, imagine that and on top of that now on everything you got to deal with because now you got to give up, you know, a percentage to a franchisor and
5% to marketing, 6% to royalties. Yeah.
yeah, it would bury you really quickly. I don't know that I'd touch a franchise. I mean, that's just
Right.
personal, but
Yeah.
It's a risk reward for me, right? Because I mean, the reason why you buy a franchise is
yeah.
operational support,
Yep.
right? Clearly, and then in large part, depending on the brand you're buying the brand, the right to use
Yeah.
that brand. McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, etc. Is there more risk, but potentially more reward of being an early franchisee with one of these? Sure, right? You get the best area first. Maybe you get a bit more of a sweetheart deal early on.
Mhm.
But then there's the risk of having, you've bought into a brand that has no brand presence.
But a crazy idea though is, look, if it were me, before I would say, hey, I'm going to drop 100 grand and I'm going to do this, honestly, this concept is well received over in Europe, right?
Yeah.
I think I would go to Europe and I would say, why is it working there? Because let's face it, if you have, sub par pizza in Italy, guess what? You're not gonna sell anything, right? Not even for their pigs, right?
Yeah.
And so to be able to go over there and see what they're doing right, and does it taste the same? Clearly it couldn't. So what's the differences? Why are they succeeding and why is it maybe not so good, here in the States? I think
Because no one drives cars in Europe.
Yeah, I was going to say because they
Walking.
yeah,
And I'm
and I
kidding,
think that's
but
the big difference right
there's a
there.
little bit of truth.
Yeah.
I think too, the machines in Europe, like I think we looked at some of those ones are, I mean, I think one of those is upwards of 85K per
Yeah.
machine. And that's where they're mixing the dough. So, none of us have tasted it, but I imagine it probably is a higher level of ingredients.
You'd hope, yeah, for sure.
Mm.
I mean, and maybe that would work, but then again, you have to, if your entry point is 85K, think about how many pizzas you still have to sell, even if they're good.
And at what price point? I mean, if
Yeah.
you're getting into pizzeria prices, that
Yeah.
could be problematic.
Yeah.
The part of this that was interesting to me as I was looking into it too is some of those more expensive ones, and especially the ones that are in Europe, it was one component of basically a food court. There was another vending machine next to it with healthy options. There was another one with paninis. I mean, making it part of more of that kind of an offering. I mean, to me, that has some interest. I think that people want to eat healthy if they have that option.
Yeah.
They can go grab a mediocre pizza for the kids, and they can grab some nice salad or, panini, whatever it might be. Who knows? Maybe that's something it's worth looking into.
Well, and you bring up a good point, Rob, because in Europe, to some extent, I think to a large extent, that's true. Japan is very much a culture that's used to buying a lot of things from vending machines. I don't think we're there yet in the United States. It's growing, but the question you got to ask yourself is, how much of your time, money, and resources are going to be spent building the market, educating the market, and trying to build the market as opposed to just reaping the benefits of a culture and a market that's already accustomed to it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So let's go ahead and wrap this conversation up. Let's go through each of us. Give your final thoughts. Rob, why don't you go first?
I would be on hold, but probably no. I think I'd want to take a look at it maybe 6 months and just see if there's been any improvements made. If not, then I would say I would, move on to something else, but I would at least think about giving it a revisit.
Okay. Brendan, what do you think?
If we could solve the taste and solve a little bit of the experience issues that we've seen with them, I would say test it until we get there. I'm a hold.
Okay. As far as my opinion on it, I think this is a back of the napkin awesome idea, but in reality, a real challenge. So I would let you guys hold.
Don't buy a business based on a hope and a prayer. Buy based on brutally honest answers.
And tell me if it was a good idea later, but I'd probably be out. So
We'd force you in.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Pizza vending machines are a wild idea, but like every business, the devil's in the details. We broke down the good, the bad, and the real hurdles you'd face if you wanted to make this work. If you're serious about finding your next move and you want a proven system to evaluate businesses the right way, join the conversation at yournextventure.ai. And if you're ready to go deeper, comment pizza, and I'll send you our business evaluation playbook, the same playbook we use before making any serious move. You've got the playbook. Now it's up to you to use it. Let's go build something real.